Okay, I'm so excited.
So am I. Yeah.
So, hello, I'm Fran, and I'm new to Vegius. I'm new to the Vegius team, and I'm super interested in discovering the stories behind the human stories behind veganism. And that's why I thought I start with interviewing the founder of Vegius and the mastermind behind Vegius, Faik, who is joining me today for my first interview. Hi, Faik.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, friend. So it's really, really wonderful to welcome you to the Vegies team. And I'm so incredibly happy that you're starting with this interview interview series and to be your first guest. And yes, the human element and the human story behind every person uh and behind every organization, I think is incredibly vital because it will shed light that uh, the typical engagements, social media and stuff usually would not. So this is, I think, is really great.
Yes, yes, that's why I'm super excited about this. And I'm going to start with my first question. I'm always interested in, usually we as vegans were not born vegans. Some were, but not most.
Yeah,
So
vast majority. Yeah.
yeah. So what's the story behind Feig? How did you start out in life? Where were you born? And what was your relationship to food and animals at that time?
Yeah. So I was born in Algeria, and that's where I grew up. It's not really a meat-heavy culture. So meat really wasn't an issue. Then when I came to college in 2001. And right away, I noticed something very strange. Americans ate meat for breakfast. That was just, to me, that was just very, very bizarre. I mean, and then just the amount of meat that was in the dining hall all the time. And then I actually ran across a table by animal rights activists. And so they were just showing some footage and they looked and I still remember that image very, very vividly. It was a monkey being experimented on and the fear in the monkey's eyes.
Mm.
And I decided to become vegetarian there and then. And assuming that vegetarianism and not killing animals directly was all that was required.
Yes.
So, but the conversion was, to me, it was really immediate. It was, I mean, it just made sense to me. I
Yeah.
mean, when I heard of the concept and I made the connection, and also I found myself in this sort of um, meat heavy culture, it sort of primed me to be a receiver of that message. And also I think part of it is temperament in the sense that I have always been comfortable with being uncomfortable in the sense of stepping out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
So that was stepping out of my comfort zone, and the fact that it isn't something I'm familiar with, quite the opposite. It more than it intrigued me. So just okay. So it made me think about it and engage with it. And then for 16 years thereafter, I did not actually eat meat, but I was just vegetarian. Well, I bought into the marketing myths of the humane treatment of chicken and the egg and all of that. And I was thinking, I said, these vegans, I used to joke, I used to call vegans fundamentalist vegetarians. I just think, it's like religious, it's like in a religion and you have the fundamentalists of that religion. I think the vegetarianism, vegans were, and it was more of a joke.
Yeah.
Um, because I thought, well, if there is this sort of symbiotic relationship between humans and animals, why wouldn't benefit from them if they benefit from us? Well, all of it is wrong. But then suddenly, and somebody actually, and it's funny. I mean, it was the person who brought it up. They're a little bit. I don't know how to describe them exactly. They didn't make sense in didn't make sense in all other kinds of ways. I think they may have suffered a little bit of mental illness. But sometimes, sometimes the the messenger and the message
Mm.
are to be separated. Not that I would dismiss that person for any other reason, but it's just the context. I mean, because they were talking about all host of things. But for me, I try to always try to see the truth in what somebody says. And then what the person says about that, I just remember they said something about dairy. Initially, I dismissed it, but when I went home, I started thinking about it. And then I actually looked it up. So that person, we met in that event with our other people there. Thank you so very much for changing my life. And those animal rights activists back when in college, they don't even know they changed my life. Then Vegius is the ripple effect of all of that. And in fact, I just want to say something. Sometimes we get disheartened when we talk to people and they resist when you try to tell them. And I always tell other activists, the job isn't to change people. The job is to bear testimony. That's what it is. We do not know what will happen and how. So for me, it took me 16 years to become a vegan, even though my heart was in the right place from the start. And then it took me some time to get to this point. That's, I mean, if I can change, people can change. But in brief, that's what had happened. It came in stages, but I was thinking slowly about it. I thought about it. I thought I was doing what needed to be done. Then I didn't think about it for a while. Once I did, then so vegetarian, then vegan. But I always was receptive to the idea that animals needed to be treated with compassion and respect.
So once you were aware of it, you switched completely again, like you did with the with the vegetarian. It was like instant for you, or was it a transition?
No, it was also instantaneous. And that one, it wasn't just vegan, it was vegan/animal rights activist. To me, they were one and the same thing. So, and then I can tell you a little bit about how that led to Vegius. So it actually was also that was very quick. I mean, once that change had happened to veganism, it happened very quickly. So I wanted to become a voice for the animals because for me, I was doing it for the animals. And I saw how I sort of spent 16 years of my life with a conviction that I was doing the right thing, but actually I was wrong in my understanding about the situation. Very, very typical of us human beings, which is, but thankfully that we are able to change. Then I wanted to make contributions to the movement. Saying initially, I started with Animal Safe. And so we go to slaughterhouses and, we bear witness. But for me, I realized very quickly that that was not the right type of activism for me. That type of activism, I think it would be great for somebody who's vegan to invite their non-vegan friends to really see the horror that's being hidden from them. But if you already know, well, you would be paying a very steep price. But I'm not so sure that the contributions will warrant it, and I'll tell you why. So somebody would argue and say, no, bearing witness and being with that particular individual animal, even for 5 seconds, and even nobody knows who the animal is, it absolutely is worth it. And okay, absolutely. Somebody could make that argument, and somebody could make that choice. It's a very, very personal choice. But I'll tell you, the only thing I can tell you is how I saw it. What I saw was this. So I have, earlier in my life, I lived through war. I understand PTSD. I understand what it can do to people. I understand how debilitating and how hard it is to come back from. Okay, so then if I go down this road, so for me it was, and again, it's just life experiences and how one thing contributes to the other. And in this case, something that was quite hard and negative, well, made me make progress pretty quickly because I already had that sort of experience. And so that my decision was as follows. I told myself, well, yes, I can go to these events, but the problem is that I'm going to burn out very quickly. I'm going to stop going. Now the animals would lose an ally. So I may not have a lot to offer, but whatever it is that I would be offering, if I continue, it will be short-lived and it will be done. So then I thought about it very strategically also. I said, okay, I have limited amount of resources, limited amount of time. How can I maximize this for the animals? What can I do to help them as much as I can, and in a way that they can actually sustain? So we'll talk about this another time, but I think also I started to notice very things about in the movement itself. So because sometimes we human beings, when we come to a situation, we bring in a lot with us, including our own level of awareness, self-understanding, and sometimes I think what drives people is a martyr syndrome. And I knew that I don't want to be a martyr. I'm not interested in it. I just want to help animals. So, and unless we do this, so unless we come in with some kind of and at least some kind of level of understanding, we would be doing more harm to the animals and to ourselves in the process than helping anybody. We may feel good about it, or at some level, but so to me, as I said, it was really the decisions were really carefully considered. Then I decided that the next thing is to try to volunteer at animal sanctuaries. So we go there, help out, serve animals that really need that serving, and these animal sanctuaries are always in need of volunteers. I worked perfectly. So there is Animal Place, a great animal sanctuary in Grass Valley, California, about an hour from where I live in Sacramento. And I started volunteering there. And then I met other people who have sanctuaries in the area. Like, for example, now my friend Christy, and she runs a small sanctuary called I just woke up. Maybe only sunshine sanctuary. Only sunshine. Sorry, Christy, it's not that. Of course, I only sanctuary. We were just talking yesterday about me volunteering sometime soon in February. Only sunshine. So it's a smaller sanctuary, and it's just Christy really runs the show by herself. And the picture emerged very quickly. The profile of sanctuary people who run sanctuaries: female, very resourceful, very brave, very empathetic, and self-sacrificing. And then I said, okay, I can help a particular sanctuary with time and with donations, but whatever I can provide is incredibly limited, is a drop in a bucket of need. But at the same time, when I started saying, okay, what can be done? I started to notice other things that became part of the answer. And in that, there is a thriving vegan economic movement. But I just feel, again, we'll get into that place where people with resources will be able to package it and sell it and make a buck out of it. But the people who really work very hard at the grassroots level to make it happen, I just feel that they end up struggling for donations all the time. So when they said, okay, why don't I create an organization that can solve problems in this vegan space and use the resources that it raises to support vegan animal sanctuaries so that they will work a little bit less hard on fundraising and spend more of their precious time educating people and saving animals, which I feel are very, very vital to a real transformation. And so that's sort of like how it came about and how we arrived at this point where you and I are having this interview.
Yes, yes. Now, I'm always interested in the human aspect of it. So, how, like, I mean, it's you can have an idea and it's great, but there is also you have to take action. And that's
Yeah,
not always.
absolutely.
And I know you are not an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to say something to
Yeah,
about.
I was not an entrepreneur. Now I am. Well, I
Yes.
am.
Yes.
I'm not an entrepreneur full time because I'm a university instructor. In fact, I'm in
Yes.
my office right now. But so I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I evolved into an entrepreneur just because I saw a need and my values drove me to that place. And I was just coping. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. So yeah, I'm not your typical entrepreneur. That is
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
So what did it take from you personally? How did you have to grow to really become the entrepreneur that you are now? To
Oh yeah,
really
absolutely.
to have an app that's hopefully going worldwide. And you've been on it for 2 years or 3 years already.
So no, just less than 2 years. Just so well, technically at the end of 2022. So technically, but that was like a very, very soft launch for just stays. And then last year, for the whole year, we were a little bit on hiatus. Well, because we needed to develop the app, make sure that it talks to the website, because there are some few glitches, and that it's a lot good to do with the resources more than anything.
Mhm.
But really, really working on it uninterrupted for about a year, a little
Oh,
bit over than a
right.
year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit over than a year. So what it is, okay, but here is the thing. Sometimes it actually works greatly if somebody is an outsider. Because when people are in, they think they know how to do something.
Yeah.
But then if you're outsider, you say, oh, how about over here? And sometimes what's needed, far more than expertise, sometimes fresh eyes.
Hmm.
Fresh eyes and a open-mindedness and a desire to learn the expertise.
Hmm.
So you can't just come up with fresh ideas all the time. You would have, and you were talking about taking action. So there are a few things happening here, like a few of them. So, and again, I consciously leaned into certain aspects of my life. For example, I'm a very visual person, very visual. I can visualize something, I can see it, can see it. Once I see it, it's very tangible for me. Like sometimes I talk to people and they would say, what are you talking about? Like they are, so they can respond to things around them, but
Hmm.
something is just too abstract.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I can actually respond very strongly and viscerally, like on a very visceral level to something that's really abstract because I actually see it. I
Hmm.
really do see it. The other thing is that I'm temperamentally, I'm a pretty intense person and I'm pretty resourceful and I thrive on challenge. So, and then I consciously sort of capitalize on all these qualities to make it happen. So, in the sense that, okay, I had to start somewhere. Okay, let's start. Then see what I can learn, talk to people with the right expertise, recruit people with the right expertise, um, get mentors, work with people, talk to people, and then learn. And for like with anybody else, I mean, it's a learning process. And so somebody would say, well, somebody is not an entrepreneur and they are less likely to do as well in it as somebody who's a professional entrepreneur. But that argument is very flawed for this reason. Jeff Bezos was not an entrepreneur. He just was working for somebody. Then he decided to start Amazon. Bill Gates was not an entrepreneur. And when he started, Microsoft, he actually became an entrepreneur because he had an idea. And every single person that actually we know, there isn't something called like, the entrepreneur store and you go pick up an entrepreneur from there and they come packaged. People are made and then they are made through a particular endeavor for believing in a particular idea that, to bring it into life. So in a way, I'm atypical in the sense that I'm not full-time entrepreneur, but that again, that's probably is not, I'm not atypical as people would like to believe, would think it is. But so that's what it is. And then what I have realized is that it doesn't matter what we say. It does not matter what we talk about. What matters is actually what we do. And I will tell you exactly what I mean with that. I separate two things. There are the things in life that we give formal consent to. There are the things that we believe. The things that we give formal consent to are the things that we say that we believe. For example, oh, I love equality. Yeah, everybody does. That's giving formal consent. That's not believing in equality. Or when somebody says, I believe in diversity, I believe in equality, I believe in human dignity, I believe in animal dignity. Again, that is not belief. That is just I give my formal consent to these ideas.
Hmm.
Belief is what we actually do. And to me, I just wanted to sort of live a life that actually reflected what I believe. And what I believed is that animals are absolutely worthy of dignity and respect, and that they are far more served or far better served when we realize that and make it the center of our relationship with them. And the population of people, by and large, running in sanctuaries, vegan animal sanctuaries, I think these are incredibly special kind of people, and they deserve all the support that we can give them. So,
Yes. Wonderful. Very good. That's what we're gonna do now. Um, you've talked, I mean, I have a list of questions here, but I think you've spoken about everything already. So, oh, maybe one question. So, since you've become a vegan, what have you noticed in your life? What has changed in your life or in yourself, maybe?
Lots of things, in lots of things, in lots of ways. So I can talk about, for me, I can talk about the health benefits. And to me, that's all a bonus. It's a nice bonus. I'm very glad that it exists. But let's say veganism was about to shorten my life by 10 years.
Yeah,
I would gladly embrace it
yeah,
because, I mean, I would love to measure my life by the quality of life that I live, not by how long it is. So, but I would tell you, for me, for somebody who embraced it because of the animal rights aspect, what the kinds of things that I have noticed. Like, for example, 2 days ago, there was a bug in, so I was about to take a bath, get ready, but then I noticed there was in the bathtub, there was actually a bug in there. I actually stopped, got a piece of paper, took the bug, put the bug on top of a piece of paper, and took it to the backyard. So that kind of consciousness and like how that actually I was it slowed down and I observed
yeah,
that in that moment there was that bug being part of that world and it needed consideration that I was rushing, but somehow I stopped. And then I realized, I said, oh my God, long ago, I probably would have not noticed.
mhm.
But just because we're thinking about that, I actually found myself stopping. And then I'm concerned about that bag. Okay, let's just handle the backhand kind of, carefully, stick back to the bucket. And I said bye-bye. I said, hey, goodbye. I'll see you later.
Have a good
To the
life.
bag. Have a good life. Nice to meet you. Call me, okay?
Oh, I love that so much. I know I found a bug once in a vegetable shop and I carried it out, and people were looking at me like they saw the bug on my hand and they looked at me and are like, you crazy? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I took it out.
So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. It's exactly right. So this kind of level of consciousness, this sort of level of consciousness is it just brings with it a level of consciousness that's very, very unusual. And I'm incredibly happy that in a busy day, somehow I stopped. Then I realized I stopped. Then I realized the types of things I have been doing, I've been thinking about how much they have changed me
yeah,
over. And again, uh, I can tell you, or I can list the things I give formal consent to, but I chose to just give you a story that will summarize it all for you, something
yeah.
that I actually did or how it impacted my behavior.
Yes, yes. I totally love that story. And I think
Thank you.
it really shows how veganism makes us more human, in my opinion. Not maybe not everyone. You spoke about the martyrs, but I think for most people, it really makes you way more conscious, way more aware of of all kinds of other issues as well. For me, it started out with animals, but now I'm really conscious about what I'm buying in clothes and where I'm shopping and all these things like the plastic everywhere and all these things. It kind of flows all in the same direction in a sense of us becoming more aware of who we are and what we're choosing. And so that's, I really love that story. That it's, yeah, it's really a good, what's the word? A good picture for this becoming more compassionate and more aware and human. I was wondering, how do you show up as a vegan in your professional life in front of your students? Do you tell them about
Ah,
it? Do you preach to them about it? Or are you very,
mm-mm. So no. So I'll tell you why. Only because I'm paid to teach them. I'm not paid for anything else. And I'm in position of power. I can't use that position of power to do anything other than do actually what I meant to do.
Mhm.
That being said, So sometimes, like, let's say we have potlucks. It's a very small college. So with the faculty, with the administrators, with the students. And then we would say, oh, I would ask if the food is vegan or if I bring vegan food, if it's a potluck. And people get really curious and we have great conversations. So, like, I give you an example. The chair of the department at the end of the year potluck this December, at the end of the year semester, he's not vegan, but he brought a vegan dish
Oh,
just to be accommodating of me. And then there was the secretary. So she worked here for a while before she left. She actually started Vegan Tuesday, Vegan Lunch Tuesday. It just out of our, so it comes very naturally. So
yeah,
when it comes naturally, of course I talk about it because it's
yeah,
an aspect of my life. But at the same time, I don't want to take the students hostages. As important of a belief this is to me, but with the university, I'm under certain ethical obligations. I'm contracted for certain things.
yeah.
So, okay, so that's the direct answer. The indirect answer. So, if you see these notes behind me,
Hmm.
so these are actually notes from my students. I was sick was not part of it I was sick, but part of it was having a really hard time in my life. Students sensed it. And
Hmm.
I came in the morning. On the door, I found these notes, sticky notes about them just showing me love. And they are actually all around my office. So these sticky notes. Why did they put them here? Well, that it reminds me of that we are not invisible. And
Hmm.
but why so what does that get to do with what we're talking about? A lot. When you become conscious enough to slow down for a bug and take it out, when there is a student going under a lot of stress. So I can do my contractual obligations and I can say, look, I teach you, I spend this amount of time tutoring you, but I'm sorry, it is what it is. But you could show empathy and understanding. You could challenge the student, you can teach them, you can guide them, you can mentor them, and also you can show empathy and understanding and support. So indirectly, that sort of spirit, the bug spirit, comes through. And
Hmm.
that creates this kind of bonding and this kind of experience.
Hmm.
So the veganism, so there is that they're directly talking about veganism, but there is also the way that we come in the world and how people see us and perceive us.
Hmm.
And believe me, I just really, really feel that people respond a lot to people when they respect them more than anything. I see people talk about veganism. I get turned off myself.
Yeah,
I really do because I think it's more about the person and their own issues than it about veganism.
yeah,
So, and that's what it is. I think if we let that kind of like a kind of outlook on life guide us, people, it's going to seep in everything that we do, and people are going to see it. And that is a very, very powerful way to bear testimony
yeah,
on behalf of animals.
yeah.
So
I actually don't really have that many questions anymore, but my very favorite question is, and I want details with you. I want details. What is your vision for the world? Or in other words, what is the world you want to live in the future?
very, very, very good question. So here what I think. I think that the world as we know it, it's like it's on a sort of on a timeline. And have you seen the Avengers when they take the stones and then they go back in time? Okay. So
Oh, yes. Oh, I agree. Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Yes.
so it's very similar to the idea of the Infinity War when we go back
Hmm.
and just if you change things at a particular junction, the timeline could be extremely different. And what I believe is that animal agriculture, when humans domesticated animals, it has profoundly changed humans psychologically, physically, mentally, in all kinds of ways, very bad ways. So if we are to change course, we have to go back to that moment and fix it. We cannot go back to it physically and take a time machine and go there. Not that that idea of that time machine in that sense doesn't even make sense. But what it is that we would have to sort of reset the relationship with animals at the place where we domesticated them, we treated them as property. Slavery,
Hmm.
genocide,
Hmm.
inequality. I'm totally convinced that the connection between what we see, all the things that all of us say we really dislike about the world, and that moment in history, or and probably not a particular moment, I think state phase, and may have happened that in parallel in different parts of the world. But regardless, I feel that there is a factual relationship between all these things and that. And unless we have a more expensive sort of vision of life that we live on this planet, we are one species, and there are these amazing, amazing creatures out there that can provide us with inspiration. Like, for example, that post that we had today in Vegius about Thor, and you said that you would like to meet Thor one day. I would love it for you to go and do some content at that particular sanctuary. I mean, Lane is somebody who would become a very dear friend of mine through this journey, and I have a feeling that you would really love meeting with her, and I'll make sure that make that introduction soon. And then at some point, doing tours not just in Europe but in other places.
Yes.
So that they are a source of curiosity, that they are a source of inspiration, that they are just somebody else who's different than me and lives on this planet, and they have the right to live it in their own way. I think a world where that understanding is commonplace is a world where I really, really want to live. That's not the world where we live. That's not the world where we live by a long shot. Doesn't matter. But it's in the niche where we live, like in the niche, like for example, what we are talking right now, it is that world. What we want to do is just to expand it outward.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Okay. Any more details on that?
Yeah. More details in sense of details about the world itself, or how do we get
like
there?
what would your daily life look like in that world? What would you work as, or how would you make money, or is there even money? Maybe not. What's your vision?
So yeah, so that's a very good question. I mean, for me, more than anything, like for example, starting Vegius, I really wanted to be able to support sanctuaries and to provide employment for vegans. So people who do something related to business of some kind, and they are vegan, they're compassionate, they're passionate, and I would love to play a role in creating sort of an opportunity either for direct employment through Vegius, or collaborations and doing business together. That is my dream. For me personally, honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen, because right now I'm actually defending my PhD very soon. I'm an astrophysicist, and my dream has always been, when I was younger, to just get a PhD in astrophysics and work for NASA. Something, it's just like a dream. I will be pursuing that this year. I'll be like at least applying to NASA and other places. So at some point, maybe I have done what I needed to do in sense that I initiated the whole thing, and it needed somebody to sort of like be a conduit through which it comes to the world. And then at that point, my job is done, and then let somebody else run it. Or I would evolve in a direction where that's exactly what I would be doing full time. I have no idea. It certainly wasn't the intention when I started. But still, I mean, for now, as I said, it's something that's very important to me. I spent a lot of time working on Vegius and making sure that it succeeds, and making sure that the people involved with it will get the best opportunity of creating something really meaningful. But it is not my full-time job. Like, I mean, it's full-time job in the sense that I spend a lot of time on it, but it's not my full-time job in the sense that it's not where I get my income. And I will not prioritize myself in the foreseeable future, if ever, to make money through Vegius. So as I said, to me, because having it make significant contributions to sanctuaries financially and logistically, because here's the other thing, another thing that I wanted to say. A world where I want to live is that where people sort of really engage in this kind of thing, not in order to disguise all their things and instincts with something that sounds good. it's not, I don't want to engage in compassion washing. Like I really have some kind of business enterprise. I'm really trying to make a buck. I'm really after, that's really what I'm after. But then they take it and then and start using these sort of nice phrases, sustainability, compassion, this and that. To me, I call that compassion washing. There is greenwashing as well. I want something to be completely different, something that is actually built and the way it shows itself and the way it carries itself is actually engaging in compassionate practices for the animals, for the people who support them, and for the people who work for the enterprise. And again, we go back to that same idea from earlier. Do we give compassion formal consent, or is compassion a value that actually guides us? And they want it to be the latter, a value that guides us and a value that is going to really be the guiding principle in everything that we do. That is a level of inspiration, and then you use every single resource in terms of like life experience, expertise of different people, and then be able. I love just being there and being able to sort of um, create the synergies, and then bring in people together and bring in a community that is worldwide. See it like you are somebody who was born in Germany, lives in the UK, was born in Algeria, I'm in the US. I was talking to somebody who's in Brazil. Somebody actually this morning got an email from somebody from South Africa. It just reminds you really how one all of us are
Yeah.
and how small this planet has become.
Yeah.
And more than I think, even more so than ever, that kind of ethic could really provide a new foundation, not for some kind of misguided utopia, but for something actually real. So,
Mhm. I 100% agree. I know you have to go.
oh, before I go, it's my turn to ask you a question. So,
Oh,
friend, yeah, I'm
ah,
gonna interview. So, what is it? So, what is it for you? What is it about Vegius that got your attention? And we got in touch, and so you, and Pritum, and so Pritum is a friend's husband, and they live together in the UK, and so with all kinds of ways we'll be collaborating in the coming months. So, what is it for you, and for both of you, and for you in particular, looking and saying, I actually want to be part of this?
it's a whole long story. I don't think we have time to get into it, but we were just talking about the essentially compassion. And I that was my theme for last year, really showing more compassion, like in terms of animals, which we kind of do already as vegans, but also compassion to meat eaters, being respectful of them, not shouting at them, which sometimes I might have been guilty of. Um, and compassion also with ourselves. I know I can be hard on myself when I'm maybe not as vegan as I want to be. And that was the big theme for me last year. And I remember I saw a video of you on Instagram and you talked about compassion. I don't really remember the details about it, but it really stood out to me. And I feel now that I'm getting more into the scene, I do see more and more people talk about compassion in one way or another. But um, I didn't really see that before, and it was the first time that I really saw someone talk about it in the way you did, and that really perked my interest. And yeah, it really stood out to me, and that's why I followed Vegius on Instagram. And since then, basically every video you've taped or you've published on Instagram, I can I can sign that off. Like it's 100% what I believe in, what how I approach veganism as well. And so that was really, I felt really like last year was this point for me where I really wanted to focus my energy and my the gifts and creativity and everything I have um into fostering humans fostering more of an understanding for animals, for vegans, for veganism, for how animals are exactly like us in the way that they feel pain, they are sentient, and they are really, there is not a really big difference between us and them. And that's where I really wanted to focus last year. And then it just, the universe did its thing and you contacted me and it all happened. And
Yeah, yeah, I know,
very
absolutely. I
organic.
also saw that synergy, and I absolutely incredibly flattered, incredibly honored to have you and Pritum on board. And I know for now it's probably will be more involved in the day-to-day sort of operations than Pritum at the time being.
Yes.
But incredibly looking forward to this. We are going to develop this. So we have ideas, but we are also going with the flow and
Yes.
shaping it. And then things are in the flow. I mean that people, I mean that technical team is working on the app as we are talking, which is really great. Really looking forward to that. Having somebody of your sincerity, your understanding, and to me, you will meet the other team members as well. You will see they are all really handpicked. I
Mm,
just want to make sure that there is that sort of like real energy, real chemistry and synergy between the team members, because when you have an organization founded on that kind of energy, miracles could happen.
yes.
You could overcome all kinds of challenges,
Yeah.
but without that kind of inner harmony, it's doomed from the start. And
Yeah.
that is something that I really paid attention to.
Yeah.
So,
I actually, Marie followed me on Instagram and I looked through her Instagram feed and I was like, oh, she's the best person in the world. Like she's my best friend already, even though I
oh
don't
yeah, oh
know
my God.
her.
I exactly knew you're gonna say that, but wait until you meet Nikki also. So they are also already, when I introduced them, I told them you guys are sisters, and they totally agree. They fell in love right away. So
Yeah.
Nikki saves dogs in Mumbai. She's when she
Right.
does, she saves stray dogs. You know,
Oh,
she helps neuter them, feed them, treat them. She spends a lot of her money on dogs, stray dogs in Mumbai. So just wait and you will see. There are
yeah.
some, and that's what they say. And that's why I'm so optimistic, because surrounded by people like you guys, how couldn't I be? It's like the best types of that human beings in terms of compassion and empathy
Yeah.
and decency. So it's incredibly easy to be optimistic. And
Yes.
so thank you so much for having me for this first interview. And we can do another interview again. We can even do like bring in all the team and we sort of like all share small stories. There will
Yeah.
be interviews with sanctuary founders and business people in the business sphere. But thank you so much for starting with me, and I cannot wait to see where 2025 takes us.
I know. I'm very, very excited for our journey together. I'm very, very excited to meet the team. And I'm very, very excited for more interviews. So
Sounds great. Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
Faik, for having me.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Till next time, I hope you have a wonderful weekend and we'll be in touch.
The
Bye, friend. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Hey, wait, we've got another little story for you about a time when Faik was a really naughty boy as a child. But before we get there, please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this interview. And if you are an entrepreneur or an animal sanctuary founder, or if you do some other form of vegan activism and you would like to be interviewed by me, then please leave a comment below and I'll be in touch. And now onto the story.
When I was young, so well, it's just naughty boy, like all the naughty boys. And I caught a grasshopper,
Right.
and then I like removed its wings, and then it died. But then I cried for days and days after that.
Okay. Oh,
I didn't know any better. It's just, to me, it was like an insect. Oh, what it was, just so again, talking to you about being intense, talking to you about being just restless. That's what it was. I just roughed him up a little bit too, because I was just trying to see what happens to the wings. And I was very young and I was by myself. But then after that, when they died, I actually buried it and I cried for days. So it just shows you that our understanding sometimes man, I ate animals at the time. It's just I grew up with the default choices of culture, the culture around me.
Yeah.
But it shows you that our understanding to some of these things is actually instinctive. It's in our DNA. Being compassionate is in our DNA.
Yeah.
Like, for example, talk about humans, and sometimes you could have a cynical view of humans. They are violent, they do this, they do this. It's true. But there are other things as well. And also, I don't believe in the concept of human nature. I think there are as many human natures as there are humans on this planet. And we all vary slightly from one another in whatever quality that you take to measure us against.
Hmm.
So there are as many human natures as there are people. So this idea that there is this one immutable human nature and it's really awful, I just don't buy it. So this is my second story of a bug. In the second one, it was just it's the same person. It just shows you the same individual, very young boy and a man separated by decades.
Yes.
In this one, just a little kid playing and then ended up killing the insect by accident, and then showing how much that impacted him. I still remember it. So you said it, I just came to my mind. That happened at least, I think that was about 40 years ago.
Hmm.
So, and that, but you could see still there was something very similar theme about picking up the bag and be concerned about its well-being and just being aware of, about the bag and the bag's life. So it just shows you sometimes is that we humans are not as terrible as we lead ourselves to believe,
Hmm.
and we should have a little bit of optimism about humans and what they can do, and try to tease that out, but on a much larger scale.
Hmm.
Um, so
So, what changed in you after you buried that little bug?
I never did it again. I
Right.
never killed a bug again. I became incredibly, even though I did not connect it to veganism as such, but I became so I might occasionally, let's say there's a spider and then so that here is the thing. Also, I want to say, so somebody would say vegans are hypocrites, and we hear this all the time. Well, you kill animals too. Well, you farm land, you kill animals. But here, what people don't understand, it isn't about killing things. It's about murdering things. That's
Hmm.
the difference. And
Yeah.
it is a very, very big and important difference. So to murder something and to kill something, I'm sure, by sheer size, I step on bugs all the time. I'm sure I do. But it's not, and again, this is not about being perfect, it's about being conscious, it's about being aware.
Hmm.
So so yeah, so with the bug is that the bug mattered enough that that I slowed down and then I stopped. And then so now so that just shows you the seed. And it sort of like went on with my life. I didn't really think much of bugs for a while. Well, it's not I go out of my way to torture them, but at the same time, I don't get out of my way to help them. It's
Yes.
just a bug. I sort of like bought into the um, default choices of the culture around me. But then when I became vegan, now I just noticed, as I told you about the bug in the bathtub, that now it's much more intentional,
Yeah.
much more intentional.
Right.
And I think the veganism part was played a vital role. Now imagine raising entire generations from the start to be that way.
Well, that's for sure the world I would love to live in. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I see you next time. Bye.